But let's talk about last night, man. State of the Union, 45 had everybody's attention last night as he, I guess, called himself trying to unify the country. Did he succeed, or was it another epic fail?
Are you really honestly asking me that question?
I watched some of it.
And unifying the country. I mean, his body language alone, if you watched him, he was constant, a teleprompter. I mean, sometimes they can have, a teleprompter to the left, to the right. They may have one in the center. He was constantly looking to his left, which was all the Republicans were sitting to the right of the screen, but to his left. And he was just constantly focused on there. And then every now and then he turned to his right and kind of looked for approval from the Democrats when he's extending an olive branch or saying that he's going to try to be bipartisan, where basically 3/4 of his speech was partisan. So basically, yeah. And then, I mean, really, you hear a lot of his base say that, you know what? When he's on teleprompter, I love him. But then when he starts tweeting and he's being interviewed and he's asking questions, I just wish he wouldn't tweet, or I wish he wouldn't answer questions. But teleprompter is not Trump. When he's tweeting and when he's doing interviews, that's when he is speaking himself. And everyone has a speech writer. Obama had speech writers. However, when he answered questions, he spoke eloquently.
Right.
Basically, people were accusing that Trump on that speech being kind of remedial or on an 8th grade level, to where it's basically everyone could understand and he would get through it smoothly. But when you look at the context of what he was saying, it's like you're saying one thing, but then you do another. You're saying this, but your policies are indicating something else. So when you say to the Democrats that, basically after this, what happened yesterday, you're going to release this memo, right? You're going to talk about bipartisanship,
right?
But then on that same day, you've got your boy who's a Republican, Nunes, who wrote this memo based on the FBI investigation into Russia. You're going to allow him, and you're going to sign it, or basically allow it to pass through, because it doesn't matter. He got 5 days to figure out what he's going to do. Even if he doesn't do anything in 5 days, it still gets released. But Nunes has written this memo. He's a Republican, so it's basically a look at the things that's going to be able to set up the narrative for Donald Trump based on whatever the findings are going to be according to this investigation that Mueller's doing. Now, you're going to allow him to release it, but you're not going to let the Democrats release their rebuttal to the memo?
Really?
But yes, this happened yesterday.
Wow.
So how are you going to stand up there if you're a Democrat and you're sitting in those chambers and everything just happened that day? And actually, I'm not sure if it was after the speech or leading up to the speech. He said, yes, I'm going to release it 100%. So basically, how can you sit there and say, oh, we have to come together, we have to have unity, but yet and still earlier that day, you're not going to let the Democrats release their basically counter to the memo that Nunes has written, who's a Republican. And he's the same guy, if you remember, when, I remember the specifics of it, but I'll kind of paraphrase. He got some information from the FBI, and then he went running to the White House to tell Donald Trump the information that he had. And the thing is, he had told the media that he didn't have the information, but he had already given the information to the White House. This is the same guy who has written this memo. And you want to preach bipartisanship?
Yeah.
Come on, man. You can't do that.
I noticed he had a black family up there that was allegedly victims of some sort of violence, as if to say that, a lapse in immigration judgment really directly caused, the demise of these people's families. I mean, it was just terrible to see.
It was an opportunity, and I will give him credit of giving
It was a clever maneuver. But
Lorenzo, he is Donald Trump, and he's known as being I'm not the first person to say it's being a con man.
Yes.
That's, Trump University, that was a con. And that's what he's been able to do. You got to realize, Donald Trump has had two of the greatest inheritances in his life. His father, basically, he got his inheritance, and then he inherited a great economy from President Obama. He's just been inherited this, and he's running on the coattails. Now, he's been accused for not being someone that had a great deal of empathy. This was an opportunity for him to show it, and boy, did he did a good job of that. You know what I mean? And the families will remember the opportunity. They will remember the invitation.
He was front. In hip-hop, we call that front.
Exactly. Yeah. But he got his point across. Yeah. He was able to show some empathy. The thing that's unfortunate is that that's just basically a photo op, and he can go back and say, this is what I did for this black family. You know what I mean? Yeah. But none of his policies are directed to helping black families. Look what he did with HBCUs. He said he was going to give them money, he didn't give them money. You know what I'm saying? He can say that's why he's toting this black unemployment so much, because he can say, look what I've done for black unemployment. Your policies haven't done anything to help black unemployment. It's been on a straight decline since Obama was in office. Okay? Right. So all you've done is basically continue to do things. But one thing that he has done is he did have 2.1 million jobs created last year, right? Mm-hmm. You don't hear him mention that. Why? Because Obama had created 2.2 million jobs the year before. So he's created less jobs than President Obama did in 2016. But he's not going to talk about that. No. He's going to talk about the unemployment, which is at, I'm guesstimating right here, I think it's at 6.8. But it happens to be double that of whites. Yeah. What are you doing to close that gap? He's not doing anything.
No, and then even last night, man, he took a chance, took an opportunity, rather, to come after the NFL players again. Yeah. When he had the 4-year-old kid, Preston Sharp out there, the young 11-year-old kid, who's been known for placing U.S. flags and flowers at the graves of veterans in Northern California. Right. Then he takes a subtle jab at the NFL players. You're supposed to stand for the national anthem. I mean, just totally continuing to change the narrative of Colin Kaepernick's protest in the first place. Right. It's just shameless what this guy does.
What he has to do, Jeff. But what he has to do is he has to save his ass right now. Yeah. I mean, Mueller. We don't know what he has. But though he doesn't let Flynn get off easy if Flynn's not going to give him anything. Right. You know what I mean? You've got all these indictments that have gone down. So basically, they have to give Mueller something. So basically, this memo, all of these things that he did last night are things to change the narrative. Because now the narrative can be about the things that he mentioned in the State of the Union address, right, and the things that are going to come out in this memo. So they will be in control of the narrative, being able to talk about maybe some of the things that they may feel was inappropriately done by the FBI until Mueller wraps up this investigation. It's the same. It's a smokescreen. The same thing with the NFL. What he did was he hijacked the narrative. Basically, we all know is about Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee because of the treatment for police. We all know that.
Right. Miko Grimes was just on my show the other day, and she talked about that. Like, everybody's not a celebrity, Right. We have to worry about our kids that, go out driving. I mean, what's the kids? Trayvon Martin, I look at him and him with the hoodie on going to the store. My kid does that every day. So I can easily put myself in that position. And this is the type of lives we have to live in this country as people of color every day. So we have something to fear. There's something wrong with that. And that's all Colin Kaepernick was pointing out. But of course, like you said, 45 and I guess the mainstream media, whatever you want to call them, certain people hijacked the whole narrative and flip it in their direction or in their course.
But
you know?
I mean, the thing is, he can't even talk about.
You got to be more sympathetic, man.
But he doesn't have empathy. That's why he did what he did last night at the State of the Union by having those families there. I mean, all presidents do that, but that was basically like the best part of his speech because he was able to touch the emotions of Americans, and it was done deliberately. But
Right.
he can't talk about the Me Too movement. He can't talk about that, but he's got 19 women that have accused him of sexual assault. So he can't touch on that. You know, the fact, going back to the kneeling, that he just came out and called those NFL players' mothers bitches. That was the thing that offended me more than anything else about what he said. It's like, wait a minute, hold up. I don't even want to talk about the knee. You call my mother a B?
Right.
Really? And that's the point. That's what should piss off any woman, period. Because if it was a black man that took a knee or a white man that took a knee, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, any woman should be offended by what he said. But the thing is, all he's doing is saying things to basically satisfy his base.
Yeah.
And as long as he's satisfying his base, he's happy. But you can't turn around and ask for bipartisanship when you consistently are saying things that are going to your base.
Right.
You know, and he talks about the stock market all the time. How many people that are in his base, we're talking about the base, not the elites, because the elites are the ones who are benefiting from the stock market, but how many people in his base actually have a 401k or invest in the stock market that are benefiting from that? Yeah, they hear these great numbers, but are they reaping the benefits from that? And the percentage of Americans are not. But he continues to tote that. You know, so he's missing the point. And talking about bringing back coal, come on, man. These coal jobs are not coming back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So basically, you have to see. And I just got tweeted by somebody who was talking about the stock market and how it's breaking records. But I had to just tweet him back. I was like, where was the stock market when President Obama took over? It was probably about 6,000, 7,000. I'm guesstimating in that area because that's when I jumped in to the market when it bottomed out. Okay.
Right.
Now, where was it when he left? I'm guesstimating. I think it was around 19,000. Okay? That's 12,000, right? And now everyone's talking about it improving and breaking records. That's basically, President Obama, Usain bolted him the baton, and he's taking it and run with it. But why is it going up so much? Because now you've given tax breaks to all of these companies that are going to be saving money, and they're taking that money and buying their stocks back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
as long as they continue to do that, the stock market's going to continue to soar. And when you have a president that's talking about being the law and order president on the campaign, what is he doing? Jeff, if I was on my game during that time and I missed it, I would have invested in what? Prison stocks. Had I invested in prison stocks, because what? He's talking about sending immigrants, deporting them, or putting them in jails. Whenever you talk about law and order president, being the law and order president, you're talking about arresting people. Had I invested in prison stocks, the day he was elected, those stocks doubled.
Yeah, the dude he's all about fear, man. He's all about instilling fear in people. And hopefully, we'll see what comes out of the situation with Mueller. I'm hearing he wants to fire this guy. I don't know, man. It's all chaotic. It just frustrates me, to be quite honest with you.
But Jeff, I don't mean to cut you off, but the only reason why he really wanted to be president, actually, we found out he didn't really want to.
Yeah, I don't think he thought he would have won.
Right, exactly. But it was to put himself in the position to make money.
Right.
And to make money for the people that he knows in those positions of power. It's just almost like with Puerto Rico. And I don't know if you know this, and I don't have the names with me, but it was like when they sent the relief efforts to Puerto Rico, it was someone in Congress, a Republican, who hired a family member out of someone in the Midwest that was a two-man company to go down to Puerto Rico to help with the efforts.
Right.
It was a two-man company.
Yeah.
That's what you hire? No, you're keeping the money all in the family. And that's what the problem is with Russia. He did so much investing in Russia that, there's so commingling going on.
No doubt. I'm going to be watching my boys, Don Lemon and Anderson Cooper, and see how they all feel. Because I didn't follow up on it last night, but watching, I was watching some NBA basketball and other sports as well as James Harden went for 60 last night, and your boy Alex Smith got traded from Kansas City.
Yeah,
and now, which means Kirk Cousins is probably gonna end up somewhere else, which is good for him. So. I let myself get distracted by a few other things. You think Jacksonville?
He could go to Jacksonville right now and take that team to the next level because they do have talent at wide receiver. They've got talent at wide receiver. You know what I mean? So, and those boys got speed and they get quickness. So, and there's a lot of them there because they had a lot of injuries. You know what I'm saying? So, in the playoffs against New England, I think they were, their top 2 wide receivers were out. Right?
Right.
Yeah, I believe so. So they were able to do a lot with their top 2 wide receivers out. So you bring Cousins to Jacksonville, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Andre Elam says in the chat room, Cousins is going to Denver.
To Denver.
Who does Denver have? They need a quarterback too. They do. Yeah. He's got like 7 teams he can possibly end up in. One of them, I think, could be New York. With
Possibly.
the Jets.
It just depends on what they're going to be able to offer. Because, of course, Jacksonville can offer him the same amount of money, but because there's no state tax, it ends up to be a bigger contract.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then playing in the warm in the warm weather on a grass field can do a lot for the body as well. You know what I mean? And then you have that great Jacksonville defense as well.
Yeah.
So, Denver would be interesting, and Vance Joseph is still there. So, we like him as a coach because he used to be the defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. So that I wouldn't mind that, but I think Jacksonville would be very interesting. So he's gonna have a lot of choices.
Right. Hey, one more thing for you, Lorenzo, before I let you get out of here. We've been talking about sitcoms and stuff for most of the week. Fred Sanford, which I found out was 46 years ago when it made its debut back in the day. I think it's one of those iconic sitcoms that everybody, wanted to watch or needs to watch. And I picked Martin Lawrence's 90s classic, Martin, as the funniest sitcom that I've ever seen. I got a lot of disagreement, though, from folks in the chat room. A lot of people didn't agree with that. A lot of people feel like Good Times was better, Fred Sanford was better, the Jeffersons, those era. Where would you rank Martin? And also, I'm finding out now that Martin is considering a reboot, as the 90s is popular right now, and they're considering bringing back Martin today. I don't know if that's going to work as much as I love the show.
Yeah, because to most people, Martin isn't as funny today as he was back in the 90s, and he was one of those maybe getting the term incorrect, but he was a physical comedian basically, and there was a lot of physicality that went into his humor. He doesn't do that as much as he used to. So it's kind of hard. It's like, that transition from being that young comedian to being that older comedian. It seems it's been kind of difficult. Eddie Murphy hasn't made that transition smoothly. So it'd be interesting. But I would have to say Martin would be the number 1 sitcom of the hip hop generation. So basically, you would say, hip hop was created in the 80s and early 70s. Sorry about that, 1977. We have to say, with the year when hip hop kind of started.
Right.
But for the hip hop generation after the 90s, I'd have to say that is the number 1 sitcom. But you have, Good Times.
Very politically correct answer, Lorenzo. Which one would you pick, though? Which one is better? Sanford and Son, Martin.
I'd have to.
More iconic.
I'd have to say which was funnier.
Yeah.
I'd have to give it to, because I am a hip hop head. I'm from New York. I'd have to give it to Martin. You know what I mean? I'd have to say there's so many times where you sit back and you're watching Martin and you can there's just that connection. Sanford and Son was kind of like your mama's sitcom. You know what I mean? So and you watched it as a kid. to whereas when you sit back and you reminisce about, our days, you go back to the 90s. You may, it's almost like with music. And don't get me on this though, but you've got your 1834 stations that basically play trap music, which is a whole new generation of music now. And then you've got your 2554s that haven't really figured out how to embrace hip hop music. So when you hear certain songs like those, the Biggies and the Tupacs and the Aaliyahs and the Tribe Called Quest and the Lost Boys, and just think that's 90s. And you sit back and say, yo, we need more of that. And you can feel the texture of that music because that's what you lived and that's what you experienced. Whereas the 80s was kind of like, I know Anita Baker and I know Luther Vandross, but I know them because my mama brought those records. You see what I'm saying? So it wasn't your true experiences, and that's why I would say for the hip hop generation, it would have to be Martin. But for the greatest sitcom of all time, I don't know. I have to really sit down and do some serious research about that one. And then you had, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah, I think that was good, but
that was good, And then you had Queen Latifah's Living Single, and I'm kind of concentrating on those because
they're very
those
90s.
They were very 90s, but you had the hip hop artists who then began to cross over into acting. I remember Will Smith told me in an interview that he said, man, when I tried to act, everybody thought I was whack.
Right.
Now everybody else is trying to act. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
no doubt.
Look at where he is. Look where Queen Latifah is. Look where LL Cool J is. They are now icons that crossed over from rap into, to television. And that's why, I'd have to put Martin in that category as the best sitcom ever for the hip-hop generation. You know what I mean?
No doubt. Lorenzo, whenever you get a chance, man, download the Spreaker app, jump in the chat room. Great commentary. Coming from our listening audience around the country, man, as everybody's commenting on that. And I'm actually going to read some of the comments when we get back. Some folks say Martin barely makes their top 5, and of
all time. Right?
Yeah. RC said that, and Andre Elam said Tisha Campbell and Dwayne, they need a check, man. So, because even Tisha Campbell is endorsing the rebooting of the show. And didn't she once accuse Martin of sexual harassment prior to...
Martin was going through some stuff during that time because he was married to Pat Hall. And I think they have a child together, if I remember correctly. And that was around the time where he was, running outside in the sweatsuit in 100-degree heat and, had a stroke.
He was off the deep end.
He was going through a lot of stuff, and they end up getting divorced. And if you know, Pat Hall is now married to Emmett Smith.
Right. Oh, she is fine.
Yeah. I know her personally.
She is fine.
Actually, this was in Hampton, Virginia, at the Hampton Coliseum, and we were actually sitting next to each other at a concert. And that's when she shared with me that she was dating Martin Lawrence. And of course, we were at a comedy show and he was performing on stage. I was like, really? She was like, yeah, she's gorgeous.
Wow.
She's gorgeous. So he was going through some stuff during that time.
Damn,
so
did not know that.
Yeah, exactly. So, hopefully they've come together, but it'll be interesting. But top 5 of all time, I don't know, but for the hip-hop generation, I would say that is number 1, and I would just love to hear the suggestions of who would be their top 5 after 1990.
No doubt, man. Some great commentary, like I said, in the chat room, man. Make sure you I'm
going to go in there and check it out.
No doubt. Lorenzo I.C. Thomas live from the MIARadio.com. Make sure you download his app. Check out the radio station as well. Follow on Twitter and live from the MIA, man. Grown folks music all the time, and some great 90s joints being played on there as well as today's music.
Yeah, definitely. Nice little mix, man. Got to fill that void.
No doubt. You do a great job, man. Thanks for joining the show, Lorenzo.
All right, Jeff. Talk to you soon.
All right, no doubt. Appreciate
you. Let's go Heat. Let's go Heat.
Oh, yeah, big game tonight. Cleveland.
Kevin Love got hurt. He broke his hand.
Yeah, Kevin Love is out, so we hopefully we beat that ass tonight, man. We'll see.
That's right, man. Talk to you later.
All right, homie. Lorenzo Ice-T Thomas here on the Jeff Foxx Show.